Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today we're doing chapters 19 and 20. I think it's about 38 pages in total. I think that's what I worked it up. Okay. I'll just make sure everything's working as well. God, just gotta double check the audio and everything. So, should be able to see everything. Yeah, this will work. Let's get started. We have, like I said, 38 pages to get through today. Where am I up to? Chapter 19. We've done like most of the book now. We just have a couple more pages couple more chapters left. There's 27 chapters in total in this book, and there's 27 total chapters in the other parts in the other three books in the trilogy. Okay. Did 3 chapters last stream. Those chapters must have been short because I got through it pretty fast. Okay. Right. I clap my hands over my mouth. But the sound has already escaped. The sky goes black and I hear a chorus of frogs beginning to sing. Stupid, I tell myself. What a stupid thing to do. I wait, frozen, for the woods to come alive with assailants. Then I remember there's almost no one left. Always knocking my camera. Just saying here, Katniss is highly critical of herself. Peter, who's been wounded, is now my ally. Whatever doubts I've had about him dissipate because if either of us took the other's life now, we'd be pariahs when we were returned to District 12. In fact, I know if I were watching, I'd loathe any tribute who didn't immediately ally with their district partner. Besides, it just makes sense to protect each other. And in my case, being one of the star-crossed lovers from District 12, it's an absolute requirement if I want any more help from sympathetic sponsors. And then my highlighting game is going to get better, and it's going to be great. Wow, that was really bad. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't bleed through. Just writing down Candace working the game again to her advantage. Star-crossed lovers, Peter must have been playing that angle all along. Why else would the game makers have made this unprecedented change in the rules? For two tributes to have a shot at winning, our romance must be so popular with the audience that condemning it would jeopardize the success of the games. No thanks to me. All I've done is manage to not kill Peter. But whatever he's done in the arena, he must have the audience convinced that it was to keep me alive. Shaking his head to keep me from running to the cornucopia, fighting Cato to let me escape. Even hooking up with the careers must have been a move to protect me. Peter, it turns out, has never been a danger to me. The thought makes me smile. That's so cute. The thought makes me smile. Oops. Damn. I drop my hands and hold them to the moonlight so the cameras can be sure to catch it. Um, yeah, Katniss now understands Peter's actions, but not yet his motive. I'm just highlighting where Katniss understands the games herself. She's playing the game makers. Yeah. So, who is there left to be afraid of? Foxface, the boy tribute from her district, is dead. She's operating alone at night, and her strategy has been evade, not attack. I don't really think that, even if she heard my voice, she'd do anything but hope someone else would kill me. Then there's Thresh. Alright, he's a distinct threat, but I haven't seen him not once since the games began. I think about how Foxface grew alarmed when she heard a sound at the site of the explosion. But she didn't turn to the woods. She turned to whatever lies across from it, to that area of the arena that drops us off into I don't know what. I feel almost certain that the person she ran from was Thresh, and that is his domain. He'd never have heard me from there, and even if he did, I'm too high for someone his size to reach. So that leaves Cato and the girl from District 2, who are now surely celebrating the new rule. They're the only ones who benefit from it besides Peter and me. Do I run from them now, on the chance they heard me call Peter's name? No, I think let them come. Let them come with their night vision glasses and their heavy branch-breaking bodies, right into the range of my arrows. But I know they won't. If they didn't come in daylight to my fire, they won't risk what could be another trap at night. When they come, it will be on their own terms, not because I've let them know where my whereabouts. Stay put and get some sleep, Katniss, I instruct myself. Although I wish I could start tracking Peter now. Tomorrow you'll find him. I do sleep, but in the morning I'm extra cautious, thinking that while the Koreas might hesitate to attack me in the tree, they're completely capable of setting an ambush for me. I make sure to fully prepare myself for the day, eating a big breakfast, securing my pack, readying my weapons before I descend. But all seems peaceful and undisturbed on the ground. Once again about food right here, eating a big breakfast. Today I'll have to be scrupulously careful. I don't know how to pronounce that. There's so many words I just can't say out loud, but I know in how to say in my head. The careers will know I'm trying to locate Peter. They may well want to wait until I do before they move in. If he's as badly wounded as Cato thinks, I'd be in the position of having to defend us both without any assistance. But if he's that incapacitated, how has he managed to stay alive, and how on earth will I find him? I try to think of anything Peter ever said that might give me an indication as to where he's hiding out. But nothing rings a bell, so I go back to the last moment I saw him sparkling in the sunlight, yelling at me to run. Then Cato appeared, his sword drawn, and after I was gone, he wounded Peter. But how did Peter get away? Maybe he'd held out better against the tracker jacket poison than Cato. Maybe that was the variable that allowed him to escape. But he'd been stung too. So how far could he have got? Stabbed and filled with venom? And how has he stayed alive all these days since? If the wound and the stingers haven't killed him, surely thirst would have taken him by now. I'm just highlighting this part as an indication about Peter's ability to survive being hijacked. Okay, the effects. Peter experienced the effect of tracker jacket venom before he was hijacked. I just wanted to make a note of that because that probably plays into why he's capable of like surviving being hijacked and getting back to himself in a way, because it's something he's experienced before. And that's when I get my first clue to his whereabouts. He couldn't have survived without water. I know that from my first few days here. He must have hidden somewhere near a source. There's a lake, but I find that an unlikely option since it's so close to the crew's base camp. A few spring-fed pools, but you'd really have to be sitting duck at. You'd really be a sitting duck at one of those. And the stream, the one that leads from the camp Bro and I made all the way down near the lake and beyond. If he stuck to the stream, he could change his location and always be near water. He could walk in the current and erase any tracks. He might even be able to get a fish or two. Well, it's a place to start, anyway. To confuse my enemies' minds, I start a fire with plenty of green wood. Even if they think it's a ruse, I hope they'll decide I'm hidden somewhere near it, while in reality, I'll be tracking Peter. The sun burns off the morning haze almost immediately, and I can tell the day will be hotter than usual. The water's cool and pleasant on my bare feet as I head downstream. I'm tempted to call out Peter's name as I go, but decide against it. I will have to find him with my eyes and one good ear, or he will have to find me. But he'll know I'll be looking right. He won't have so low an opinion of me as to think I'd ignore the new rule and keep to myself, would he? He's very hard to protect, which might be interesting under different circumstances, but at the moment only provides an extra obstacle. I want to write down here because this is where Katniss is tracking Peter. I saw someone talk about, or I've seen like a couple people talk about how dangerous Katniss was in the arena, and she doesn't even realize it because she's so used to being like acting in this way that she can track Peter based on instincts and her knowledge of like just tracking people and prey in the past. So she's very much a threat here and doesn't even realize it. Candace is a big threat in the games for being able to track Peter down, and she doesn't really realize it. That's just what I've written down. It doesn't take long to reach the spot where I peeled off to go to the careers camp. There's been no sign of Peter, but this doesn't surprise me. I've been up and down this stretch 3 times since the tracker jacket incident. If he were nearby, surely I'd have some suspicion of it. The stream begins to curve to the left into a part of the woods that's new to me. Muddy, banks covered in tangled water, plants lead to large rocks that increase in size until I begin to feel somewhat trapped. It would be no small matter to escape the stream now, fighting off Kate or Thresh as I climb over this rocky terrain. In fact, I've just about decided I'm on the wrong track entirely, that a wounded boy would be unable to navigate getting to and from this water source when I see the bloody streak going down the curve of a boulder. It's a long, it's long dried now, but the smeary lines running side to side suggest someone who perhaps was not fully in control of his mental faculties tried to wipe it away. At least Peter tried to cover his tracks. Not very well, but tried to. I've just written here a longer paragraph as Katniss spirals into making a decision and analyzing her surroundings, which I've noted in a couple of different parts of the novel that Susan Collins will write longer paragraphs as Katniss has just like a little spiral and either will spiral anxiously or will try to take in her surroundings or both at the same time. Hugging the rocks, I move slowly in the direction of the blood, searching for him. I find a few more bloodstains, one with a few threads of fabric glued to it, but no sign of life. I break down and say his name in a hushed voice. Peter, Peter. Then a mockingjay lands on a scruffy tree and begins to mimic my tone, so I stop. I give up and climb back down to the stream, thinking he must have moved on, somewhere further down. My foot has just broken the surface of the water when I hear a voice. You here to finish me off, sweetheart? Not Peter like teasing Katniss. Which is so funny. They get rid of it so much in the book, in the movies, that that Peter will absolutely tease Katniss on multiple occasions because Katniss can be a little bit innocent and uptight, depending on what section of the novel you're looking at. And he points it out and has like a good laugh about Katniss and her personality. Like he mimics Haymitch here. But now that we have Sunrise and the Reaping, we have like a double meaning of this sweetheart here because Haymitch, as we know, calls Luella his sweetheart because they like got, I don't know, pretend married or something when they were little. And Katniss reminded Haymitch of Luella. So Haymitch calls Katniss sweetheart as an term of endearment, but she thinks it's a mocking term. And here, Peter uses it in a mocking term, but Katniss is kind of his sweetheart. So I'm sitting like really close to my ring light at the moment in my camera stand, so I keep knocking it every time I go to write an annotation. Peter and Katniss also like technically met when they were like little kids as well. Just written here. Peter is mimicking Hamish to tease Katniss, but Katniss is actually his sweetheart in a similar way to Hamish and Luella. It's just raining outside. If you guys can hear that. Whip around. It's come from the left, so I can't pick it up very well. And the voice was hoarse and weak. Still, it must have been Peter. Who else in the arena would call me sweetheart? My eyes peruse the bank, but there's nothing. Just mud, the plants, the base of the rocks. Peter, I whisper, where are you? There's no answer. Could I just have imagined it? No, I'm certain it was real and very close at hand too. Peter, I creep along the bank. Well, don't step on me. She can't see him. That's so funny. I jump back. His voice was right under my feet. Still, there's nothing. Then his eyes open, unmistakably blue in the brown mud and green leaves. I gasp and am rewarded with a hint of white teeth as he laughs. That's so funny. It's the final word in camouflage. Forget chucking weights around. Peter should have gone into his private session with the game makers and painted himself into a tree, a boulder, or a muddy bank full of weeds. There's a really good image in the Hunger Games illustrated version that I think really captures what I personally imagine. It's not in the movies in the same way. Let me show you guys. Just gonna move this one out of the way for a second. This this book's really big and it's gonna be out of the frame a little bit. Let me find it first. Oh, knocking the camera too much. Oh, look. Ruined cat lives. How adorable. Oh, here it is. This is Peter camouflaged in the muddy banks besides the river, which I think is just perfect and honestly exactly how I imagined it. Look at him, just the sky is there. All you can see are his blue eyes poking out of the just of the banks and his camouflage. It's so fun. Okay, let me go back to annotating now. I really love the images that Nico Delore added into the illustrated versions. The Mockingjay one is coming out later this year, which is exciting. Let's get back to annotating. Where was I up to? Like the beginning of this page. Close your eyes again, I order. He does, and his mouth too, and completely disappears. Most of what I judge to be his body is actually under a layer of mud and plants. His face and arms are so artfully disguised as to be invisible. I kneel beside him. I guess all those house hours decorating cakes paid off. Peter smiles, yes, frosting the final defense of the dying. That's so bad. I'm just going to highlight this because it's the description of what he looks like, and I like the description of what he looks like. "You're not going to die," I tell him firmly. Says who? His voice is so ragged. Says me, we're on the same team now, I tell him. You know, I wonder if Peter knew at this point that he definitely did not know that he'd survive all the way to the end of the rebellion. Like, he is alive well into his 30s. And at this point, he's like got no clue that's going to happen. His eyes open, so I heard. Nice of you to find what's left of me. I love their little banter. It's so cute. I pull out my water bottle and give him a drink. Did Cato cut you? I ask. Left leg up high, he answers. Let's get you in the stream, wash you off so I can see what kind of wounds you've got. I say, I'm just gonna like add a little note that I love their banter. Honestly, Peter's like a smart ass, to be honest. They really did not capture that in the movies. Lean down a minute first, he says. Need to tell you something. I lean over and put my good ear to his lips, which tickle me as he whispers. Remember, we're madly in love, so it's alright to kiss me anytime you feel like it. The man is a flirt. The man is such a massive flirt. And it's all real to him as well. And Katniss just finds it funny. She doesn't even realize that he's not faking it. I'm gonna also highlight this bit. Yeah, a damn flirt. I jerk my head back, but end up laughing. Thanks, I'll keep it in mind. At least he's still able to joke around. But when I start to help him to the stream, all the levity disappears. It's less than a meter away. How hard can it be? Very hard when I realize he's unable to move a centimeter on his own. He's so weak that the best he can do is not resist. I try to drag him, but despite the fact that I know he's doing all he can to keep quiet, sharp cries of pain escape him. The mud and plants seem to have imprisoned him, and I finally have to give a gigantic tug to break him from their clutches. He's still half a meter from the water, lying there, teeth gritted, tears cutting trails in the dirt on his face. The thing is, Katniss is actually really, really tiny. She's strong, but she's really tiny. I think Peter's not that much taller than Katniss. He's like a medium build, and Katniss is like short and skinny, or scrawny. And I bet it'd be a bit of a struggle to pick Peter up, even though she's strong. Look, Peter, I'm going to roll him in the stream. It's very shallow here, okay? Excellent, he says. I crouch down beside him. No matter what happens, I tell myself don't stop until he's in the water. On three, I say. 1, 2, 3. I can only manage one full roll before I have to stop because of the horrible sound he's making. Now he's on the edge of the stream. Maybe this is better anyway. Okay. Change of plans. I'm not going to put you all the way in, I tell him. Besides, if I get him in, who knows if I'll ever be able to get him out. No more rolling, he asks. That's all done. Let's get you cleaned up. Keep an eye on the woods for me, okay? I say, it's hard to know where to start. He's so caked with mud and matted leaves, I can't even see his clothes. If he's wearing clothes, the thought makes me hesitate a moment, but then I plunge in. Naked bodies are no big deal in the arena. This is one of the things that I think she goes into it further later on, but Katniss does not like nudity at all. And it's something that the other tributes or the other victors tease her about in um Catching Fire. Like, Joanna strips down naked in Catching Fire after the tribute parade because they all watched Katniss struggle to deal with nudity in the arena. They don't put that in the movies, that Katniss doesn't like it. She's so squeamish around nudity. And then Peter mentions it's because You're so innocent. That's why, like, everyone's teasing you. So squeamish. Yeah, that is how I was gonna spell it. Candace innocently is squeamish. I've got 2 water bottles and Rue's water skin. I prop them up against rocks in the stream so that 2 are always filling while I pour the third over Peter's body. It takes a while, but I finally get rid of enough mud to find his clothes. I gently unzip his jacket, unbutton his shirt, and ease them off him. His undershirt is so plastered in his wounds, I have to cut it away with my knife and drench him again to work it loose. He's badly bruised with a long burn across his chest and 4 tracker stings, if you count the one under his ear. But I feel better, that much I can fix. I decide to care of his upper body first to alleviate some pain before I can tackle whatever damage Kato did to his leg. Since treating his wound seems pointless when he's lying in what's become a muddy puddle, I manage to prop him up against a boulder. He sits there, uncomplaining, while I wash away all the traces of dirt from his hair and skin. His flesh is very pale in the sunlight, and he no longer looks strong and stocky. I have to dig the stingers out of his tracker jacket lumps, which causes him to wince. But the minute I apply the leaves, he sighs in relief. While he dries in the sun, I wash his filthy shirt and jacket and spread them over boulders. Then I apply the burn cream to his chest. This is when I notice how hot his skin is becoming. The layer of mud and the bottles of water have disguised the fact that he's burning with fever. I dig through the first aid kit I got from the boy from District 1 and find pills that reduce your temperature. Wow, how lucky. What a coincidence. My mother actually breaks down and buys these on occasion when her home remedies fail. Swallow these, I tell him, and he obediently takes the medicine. You must be hungry. Not really. It's funny, I haven't been hungry for days, says Peter. In fact, when I offer him Grusling, he wrinkles his nose at it and turns away. That's when I know how sick he is. Once again, food and eating has been mentioned. It's like every other page at this point. It's always about food. Peter, we need to get some food in you, I insist. It'll just come right back up, he says. The best I can do is get him to eat a few bites of dried apple. Thanks, I'm much better, really. Can I sleep now, Katniss? He asks. Soon, I promise. I need to look at your leg first. Trying to be as gentle as I can, I remove his boots with his socks and then very slowly inch his trousers off him. I can see the tear Kato's sword made in the fabric over his thigh, but it in no way prepares me for what lies underneath, the deep inflamed gash oozing both blood and pus, the swelling of the leg, and worst of all, the smell of festering flesh. That's so gross. I want to run away, disappear into the woods like I did that day they brought the burn victim to our house, go and hunt while my mother and Prem attend to what I have neither the skill nor the courage to face. But there's no one here but me. I try to capture the calm demeanor my mother assumes when handling particularly bad cases. Except Katniss doesn't have a poker face. We've established this earlier in the novel. I don't remember whereabouts it was, but I remember writing it down somewhere as well. Pretty awful, huh? Says Peter. He's watching me closely. I don't think he needs to watch her closely to understand she doesn't like think it's that she thinks it's really bad. Because, like we said, Katniss does not have a poker face. Right, so, I shrug, like it's no big deal. You should see some of the people they bring my mother from the mines. I refrain from saying how I usually clear out of the house whenever she's treating anything worse than a cold. Come to think of it, I don't even much like to be around coughing. First thing is to clean it well. I've left on Peter's undershorts because they're not in bad shape and I don't want to pull them over the swollen thigh. And alright, maybe the idea of him being naked makes me uncomfortable. Oh, Katniss. Fair. Girl, I'd be the same. Again, every time. Okay. There's another thing about my mother and Prim. Nakedness has no effect on them. Gives them no cause for embarrassment. I mean, if you want to be a doctor or a nurse of any sort, nudity kind of can't you can't be affected by it. Ironically, at this point in the games, my little sister would be far more used to Peter than I am. I scoot my square of plastic under him so I can wash down the rest of him. I just like that line, so I'm just highlighting it. Okay, hang on. With each bottle I pour over him, the worse the wound looks. The rest of his lower body that has fared pretty well. Just one tracker jacket sting and a few small burns that I treat quickly, but the gash on his leg, what on earth can I do for that? Why don't we give it some air and then a trail off? And then you'll patch it up, says Peter. He looks almost sorry for me as if he knows how lost I am. Um, I love their interactions, just like he can read Katniss really well. Mostly because she doesn't have a poker face, but still. That's right. I say, in the meantime, you eat these. I put a few dried pear halves in his hand and go back to the stream to wash the rest of his clothes. More eating, more about food. They're flattened out and drying, I examine the contents of the first aid kit. It's pretty basics. Bandages, fever pills, medicine to calm stomachs, nothing of the caliber I'll need to treat Peter. We're going to have to experiment some, I admit. I know the tracker jacket leaves draw out infections, so I start with those. Within minutes of pressing the handful of chewed up green stuff into the wound, pus begins running down the side of his leg. I tell myself this is a good thing and bite the inside of my cheek hard because my breakfast is threatening to make a reappearance. Katniss, Peter says. I meet his eyes, knowing my face must be some shade of green. He mouths the words, "How about that kiss?" Peter! My god, time and place, man. Come on. Man is flirting and very much teasing her. Jeez. Then flirting to make light of this situation. Bursts out laughing because the whole thing is so revolting. I can't stand it. Something wrong? He asks a little too innocently. Capital audience. They're loving this. Just writing down the capital audiences loving this, and so am I, because it is hilarious. I love their little banter. Even though Candace is a little clueless in this situation. This is like the best of Peter, and they admit it from the movies. Forever, forever mad about that. I'm not good at this. I'm not my mother. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I hate pus, I say. Ugh, I allow myself to let out a groan as I rinse away the first round of leaves and apply the second. Ugh. How do you hunt? He asks. Trust me, killing things is much easier than this, I said. That's actually, that's a different, hmm, that is a different tense than, that's past tense and this is present tense she's using. That's actually very interesting. That's kind of an editing error right there. That's, huh. Although for all I know, I am killing you. Can you speed it up a little? He asks. No, shut up and eat your pears. Okay. It is like my favorite part of the book. After 3 applications and what seems like a bucket of pus, the wound does look better. Now that the swelling has gone down, I can see how deep Cato's sword cut, right down to the bone. What next, Dr. Everdeen? He asks. Maybe I'll put some of the burn ointment on it. I think it helps with infection anyway, and wrap it up. I say, I do, and the whole thing seems a lot more manageable. Covered in clean white cotton, although against the sterile bandage, the hem of his undershorts looks filthy and teeming with contagion. I pull out Rue's backpack. Here, cover yourself with this and wash your short. I'll wash your shorts. Oh, I don't care if you see me, says Peter. Just like the rest of my family, I say, I care, all right. I turn my back and look at the stream while the undershorts splash. At the stream until the undershorts splash into the current. He must be feeling a bit better if he can throw. Tannis is just a little innocent here. So this is just a little too innocent here. Just write that one down. I'm going to refer back to that in Catching Fire, which I find hilarious that Peter even pointed out. You know, you're kind of squeamish for such a lethal person. Says Peter as I beat the shorts clean between two rocks. I wish I'd let you give Hamish a shower after all. I wrinkle my nose at the memory. What's he sent you so far? Not a thing, says Peter. Then there's a pause as it hits him. Why? Did you get something? Burn medicine, I say, almost sheepishly. Oh, and some bread. I always knew you were his favorite, says Peter. The poor boy, never been chosen first. Well, he could only hope to get one out of the arena at this point, and obviously he chooses his sweetheart. Because he couldn't get his sweetheart out of the arena alive last time. Luella did escape the arena, but she died. She had to die in the process. So, that's one thing. Well, Peter never being chosen first, but of course Hamish had to save his sweetheart. Please. He can't stand being in the same room with me, I say. Because you're just alike, mutters Peter. I ignore it though, because this really isn't the time for me to be insulting Hamish, which is my first impulse. I let Peter doze off while his clothes dry out, but by late afternoon, I don't dare wait any longer. I gently shake his shoulder. Peter, we've got to go now. Go. He seems confused. Go where? Away from here, downstream maybe, somewhere we can hide you until you're stronger, I say. I help him dress, leaving his feet bare so we can walk in the water. Pull him upright. His face drains of color the moment he puts weight on his leg. Come on, you can do this. But he can't, not for long anyway. We make it about 50 meters downstream with him propped up by my shoulder, and I can tell he's going to black out. I sit him in the bank, push his head between his knees, and pat his back awkwardly as I survey the area. Of course, I'd love to get him up in a tree, but that's not going to happen. It could be worse, though. Some of the rocks form small cave-like structures. I set my sights on one about 20 meters above the stream. When Peter's able to stand, I half guide, half carry him up to the cave. Really, I'd like to look around for a better place, but this one will have to do because my ally is shot, paper white, panting, and even though it's only just cooling off, he's shivering. I cover the floor of the cave with a layer of pine needles, unroll my sleeping bag, and tuck him into it. I get a couple of pills and some water into him when he's not noticing. But he refuses to eat even the fruit. Hang on. Alright. I get a couple of pills and some water into him when he's not noticing. But he refuses to eat even the fruit. Even more about food there. Then he just lies there, his eyes trained on my face as I build a sort of hideout of vines that conceal the mouth of the cave. The result is unsatisfactory, as an animal might not question it, but a human would see hands had manufactured it quickly enough. I tear it down in frustration. Katniss, he says. I go over to him and brush the hair back from his eyes. Thanks for finding me. That is so cute, actually. She like instinctually cares for him here. That's adorable. You would have found me if you could, I say. His forehead burning up like the medicine's having no effect at all. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I'm scared he's going to die. Yes, look, if I don't make it back, he begins. Don't talk like that. I didn't drain all the pus for nothing, I say. I know, but just in case I don't, he tries to continue. No, Peter, I don't even want to discuss it, I say, placing my fingers on his lips to quiet him. Okay. That's such a cliche move, Katniss. Do better. But he insists, impulsively. I lean forward and kiss him, stopping his words. This is probably overdue anyway, since he's right. We're supposed to be madly in love. It's the first time I've ever kissed a boy, which should make sort of impression, I guess. But all I can register is how unnaturally hot his lips are from the fever. I want to highlight this because I actually used this quote in my honors dissertation to argue that Katniss is potentially aromantic and asexual because she doesn't really feel anything for Peter at this point. The headcanon is that she's demi-romantic and demisexual, which is essentially like little to no romantic attraction, um, or there's no romantic attraction until you have an emotional bond with someone, and there's no sexual attraction until you have an emotional bond. And um, here she doesn't have an emotional bond with Peter, or like not like super close, but this eventually changes as the book progresses and they get to know each other better and her attraction for Peter changes. Because up until this point, any feelings that Katniss has for Peter is platonic. Um And it's still platonic here. She cares for Peter because um, he saved her from starving, and they have that kind of bond, but they don't have a bond to develop their romantic feelings until after they've shared some personal stories about themselves. I think it's a really good quote and indication of how Katniss's emotions develop for Peter over time. She has a very similar thing with Gale, but it's a little bit more forced with Gale because he doesn't understand ways. I break away and pull the edge of the sleeping bag around him. You're not going to die, I forbid it. All right. All right, he whispers. I step out in the cool evening air just as the parachute floats down from the sky. My fingers quickly undo the tie, hoping for some real medicine to treat Peter's leg. Instead, I find a pot of hot broth. Hamish couldn't be sending me a clearer message. One kiss equals one pot of broth. I can almost hear his snarl. You're supposed to be in love, sweetheart. The boy's dying. Give me something I can work with. This is their communication style in the arena because they're so alike. And I'm going to write that down in a minute. I've written this down in the past as well for Canis and Hamish's communication style. Down that it's their communication style. And he's right. If I want to keep Peter alive, I've got to give the audience something more to care about. Star-crossed lovers desperate to get home together. Two hearts beating as one. Romance. Since I've never been in love, this is going to be a real trick. I think of my parents, the way my father never failed to bring her gifts from the woods. Whoops. The way my mother's face would light up at the sound of his boots at the door. The way she stopped living when he died. Peter, I say, trying for the special tone that my mother used only with my father. He dozed off again, but I kiss him awake, which seems to startle him. Yeah, no shit, because he's not used to it. Then he smiles as if he'd be happy to lie there gazing at me forever. He's great at this stuff because he's not faking it like you, Katniss. Jeez. I hold up the pot. Peter, look what Hamish has sent you. I think of what to write about this. Katniss is I'm going to continue gushing over Candace and Peter's relationship. I love it. It's so cute. My standard is high because of Peter Malark. I've just written down here, Katniss has no lived experience and no desire currently for a real romantic relationship, so she has to reference her parents. And then chapter 20, we're just gonna do this chapter and then end the live stream. I think this um chapter is quite long as well. I think like 20 pages. Give me a minute. Yeah, it is very long. Okay. 37. Yeah, jeez. It's very long. It's like, what is it, 19 pages long? Something like that. Okay. We'll do that in the next hour. We can do that. Okay. Getting the broth into Peter takes an hour of coaxing, begging, threatening. That's so Candace. And yes, kissing. But finally, sip by sip, he empties the pot. I let him drift off to sleep and then attend to my own needs, wolfing down a supper of grusling and roots while I watched the daily report in the sky. No new casualties. Still, Peter and I have given the audience a fairly interesting day. Hopefully, the game makers will allow us a peaceful night. Um, Capital Entertainment right here. So I'm just highlighting it. And I'm going to make just the note that it's Capital Entertainment. Automatically look around for a good tree to nest in before I realize that's over. At least for a while. I can't very well leave Peter unguarded on the ground. I left the scene of his last hiding place on the bank of the stream untouched. How could I conceal it? And there's a scant 50 meters downstream. Put on my glasses, place my weapons in readiness, and settle down to keep watch. The temperature drops rapidly, and soon I'm chilled to the bone. Eventually, give in and slide into the sleeping bag with Peter. It's toasty warm, and I snuggle down gratefully until I realize it's more than warm. It's overly hot because the bag is reflecting back his fever. I check his forehead and find it burning and dry. I don't know what to do. Leave him in the bag and hope the excessive heat breaks the fever. Take him out and hope the night air cools him off. I end up just dampening a strip of bandage and placing it on his forehead. It seems weak, but I'm afraid to do anything too drastic. I spend the night half sitting, half lying next to Peter, refreshing the bandage, and trying not to dwell on the fact that by teaming up with him, I've made myself far more vulnerable than when I was alone. Tethered to the ground, on guard, with a very sick person to take care of. But I knew he was injured, and still I came after him. I'm just gonna have to trust that whatever instinct sent me to find him was a good one. When the sky turns rosy, I notice the sheen of sweat on Peter's lip and discover the fever has broken. Thank God, Mike. Sounds like that man was struggling. He's not back to normal, but it's come down a few degrees. Last night, when I was gathering vines, I came upon a bush of gooseberries. I strip off the fruit and mash it up in the broth pot with cold water. Once again, with the food. Peter's struggling to get up when I reach the cave. I wake up and Yorgorni says, I was worried about you. I have to laugh as I ease him back down. You were worried about me? Have you taken a look at yourself lately? I thought Cato and Clove might have found you. They like to hunt at night, he says, still serious. Clove, which one is that? I ask. The girl from District 2. She's still alive, right? He says. Just highlighting that because it tells us who Clove is. Yes, there's just them and us and Thresh and Foxface to say. That's what I nicknamed the girl from 5. How do you feel? Better than yesterday. This is an enormous improvement over the mud, he says. Clean clothes and medicine and a sleeping bag. And you, Peter. This poor boy. He doesn't know what's real, not real. I'm literally gonna make a note of that. He doesn't know it's not real. It's kind of like when the real and not real kind of start. It's because it's like messing with his head that it's not real. That's probably where Suzanne Collins got the idea because she's like, it's not real. That's why eventually at the end of the novel, it's like, you love me, real or not real. All right, the whole romance thing, I reach out to Katniss. Oh my god. All right, the whole romance thing. I reach out to touch his cheek and he catches my hand and press it against his lips. This poor guy. My god, I feel sorry for him. Damn, Peter. Katniss. I remember my father doing this very thing to my mother, and I wonder where Peter picked it up. Surely not from his father and the witch. Oh my god. We all know that Peter grew up in an abusive household. That's probably just how he feels over Katniss. That's where he picked it up. No more kisses for you until you've eaten, I say. We get him propped up against the wall, and he immediately swallows the spoonfuls of mush I feed him. He refuses the gristling again, though. More about food. You didn't sleep, Peter says. I'm alright, I say, but the truth is, I'm exhausted. Sleep now, I'll keep watch. I'll wake you if anything happens, he says. I hesitate. Katniss, you can't stay up forever. He's got a point there. I'll have to sleep eventually, and it's probably better to do it now when he seems relatively alert and we have daylight on our side. All right, I say, but just for a few hours, then you wake me. It's too warm for the sleeping bag now. I smooth it out on the cave floor and lie down, one hand on my loaded bow in case I have to shoot at a moment's notice. Peter sits beside me, leaning against the wall, his bad legs stretched out before him, his eyes trained on the world outside. Go to sleep, he says softly. His hand brushes the loose strands of my hair off my forehead. Unlike the staged kisses and caresses so far, this gesture seems natural and comforting. I don't want him to stop, and he doesn't. He's still stroking my hair when I fall asleep. That's very cute. And also it's important because Katniss confuses like real and not real gestures throughout the book because their whole romance is staged, but at the same time there are feelings there. Because like yeah, you can stage a romance like that and have banter, but there's still feelings there between them too. All right, too long. I sleep too long. I know from the moment I open my eyes that we're into the afternoon. Peter's right beside me, his position unchanged. I sit up, feeling somehow defensive, but better rested than I've been in days. Peter, you were supposed to wake me after a couple of hours, I say. For what? Nothing's going on here, he says. Besides, I like watching you sleep. You don't scowl. Prove your looks a lot, Peter. That's like a questionable thing he does say. I don't like this line. Um, proves your looks a lot. Wow, Peter. Wow, how superficial. This, of course, brings a scowl that makes him grin. Then I notice how dry his lips are. I test his cheek, hot as a coal stove. He claims that he's been drinking, but the container's still full to me. I give him more fever pills and stand over him while he drinks first 1, then 2 liters of water. And then I tend to his minor wounds, the burns, the stings, which are showing improvement. I steel myself and unwrap the leg. My heart drops into my stomach. It's worse, much worse. There's no more pus in evidence, but the swelling has increased and the tight, shiny skin is inflamed. Then I see the red streaks starting to crawl up his leg. Blood poisoning. Unchecked, it will kill him for sure. My chewed up leaves and ointment won't make a dent in it. We'll need strong anti-infection drugs from the capital. I can't imagine the cost of such potent medicine. If Hamish pulled every donation from every sponsor, would he have enough? I doubt it. Gifts go up in price the longer the games continue. What buys a full meal on day 1 buys a cracker on day 12. And the kind of medicine Peter needs would have been at premium from the beginning. Right, okay. Well, there's more swelling, but the pus is gone, I say in an unsteady voice. I know what blood poisoning is, Katniss, says Peter, even if my mother isn't a healer. You're just going to have to outlast the others, Peter. They'll cure it back in the capital when we win, I say. Yes, that's a good plan, he says, but I feel this is mostly for my benefit. You have to eat. Keep your strength up. I'm going to make you soup, I say. I'm just thinking I should highlight this. Because this is also how the games work, and I have been just highlighting bits and pieces of how the games work properly. Don't light a fire, he says. It's not worth it. We'll see, I say. As I take the pot down to the stream, I'm struck by how brutally hot it is. I swear the game makers are progressively ratcheting up the temperatures in the daytime and sending it plummeting at night. The heat of the sunbaked stones by the stream gives me an idea, though. Maybe I won't need to light a fire. I settle down on a big flat rock halfway between the stream and the cave. After purifying half a pot of water, I place it in direct sunlight and add several egg-sized hot stones to the water. I'm the first to admit I'm not much of a cook, but the soup mainly involves tossing everything in a pot and waiting. It's one of my better dishes. I mince grusling until it's practically mush and mash some of Rue's roots. I'm just going to highlight this because, once again, it is food, and most of the book is about food, I will say. Fortunately, they've both been roasted already, so they mostly need to be heated up. Already, between the sunlight and the rocks, the water's warm. I put the meat and roots. I put in the meat and roots, swap in fresh rocks, and go find some greens to spice it up. For long, I discover a tuft of chives growing at the base of some rocks. Perfect. I chop them very fine and add them to the pot. Switch up out the rocks again. Put on the lid and let the whole thing stew. I've seen very few signs of game around, but I don't feel comfortable leaving Peter alone while I hunt, so I rig half a dozen snares and hope I get lucky. I wonder about the other tributes, how they're managing now that their main source of food has been blown up. At least 3 of them, Cato, Clove, and Foxface, have been relying on it. Probably not Thresh, though. I've got a feeling he must share some of Rue's knowledge on how to feed yourself from the earth. Are they fighting each other, looking for us? Maybe one of them has located us and is just waiting for the right moment to attack. The idea sends me back to the cave. Peter stretched out on top of the sleeping bag as Peter stretched out on top of the sleeping bag in the shade of rocks, although he brightens a bit when I come in. It's clear he feels miserable. I put clothes on his head, but they warm up almost as soon as they touch his skin. Do you want anything, I ask? No, he says. Thank you. Wait, yes, tell me a story. A story? What about? I say. That's just the garage. It's very loud. 12-ish pages left. Story, what about? I say. I'm not much for storytelling. It's kind of like singing, but once in a while, Prim wheedles one out of me. Something happy. Tell me about the happiest day you can remember. Says Peter. Um, Something between a sigh and a huff of exasperation leaves my mouth. Wow. Okay. That's very loud. I think they're just moving cars outside. Yeah. A happy story. This will require a lot more effort than the soup. I rack my brains for good memories. Um, okay. I like this one. This story is this one about the goat that Prim gets. I think it is. I like that he's trying to learn more about Katniss, which I think is very cute. It's written that down. Okay. Most of them involve Gale and me out hunting, and somehow I don't think this will play well with either Peter or the audience. That leaves Prim. Did I ever tell you about how I got Prim's goat? I ask. Peter shakes his head and looks at me expectantly, so I begin, but carefully, because my words are going out all over Panna, while people have no doubt put two and two together that I hunt illegally. I don't want to hurt Gale or Greasy Say or the butcher or even the peacekeepers back home who are my customers by publicly announcing they're breaking the law too. Here's the real story of how I got the money for Prim's goat, lady. It was a Friday evening, the day before Prim's 10th birthday in late May. I just had a thought. Are are I got distracted. The what was I saying? Are Candace and Prim's birthday in the same month? That's intriguing. um, because isn't Katniss the 10th of May and and then Prim's birthday is in late May. That's very interesting. Just gonna highlight that because that's Prim's birthday. Right. I need to stop knocking my camera. As soon as school ended, Gale and I hit the woods because I wanted to get enough to trade for a present for Prim. Maybe some new cloth for a dress or a hairbrush. Our snares had done well enough and the woods were flush with greens, but this was really no more than our average Friday night haul. I was disappointed as we headed back, even though Gale said we'd be sure to do better tomorrow. We were resting a moment by a stream when we saw him, a young buck, probably a yearling by his size. His antlers were just growing in, still small and coated in velvet. Poised to run, but unsure of us and familiar with humans. Beautiful. I like that quote there. I'm just going to highlight it. Okay. Less beautiful, perhaps, when the two arrows caught him, one in the neck, the other in the chest. Gale and I had shot at the same time. The buck tried to run but stumbled, and Gale's knife slit at his throat before he knew what happened. That's very sad. Momentarily, I felt a pang of a pang at killing something so fresh and innocent. It's interesting. And then my stomach rumbled at the thought of all that fresh and innocent meat. I'm just gonna write a note. Similar to her thoughts surrounding the games, it translates to killing children. Oh dear, Gail and I have only brought down 3 in all. The first one, a doe that had injured her leg somehow, almost didn't count. But we knew from that experience not to go dragging the carcass into the hob. It had caused chaos, with people bidding on parts and actually trying to hack off pieces themselves. This is interesting here, because there's this idea that Katniss was actually very, very important to keeping the District 12 alive, and that when Burdock Everdeen died, that the rest of District 12, not just Katniss, the rest of the Everdeen family was struggling. The rest of District 12, especially people from the Seam, were struggling because they where was I going with that thought? Because Katniss or the Everdeen family is a very big main source of meat in District 12. So this is like a good way to point it out here that they're the District 12 is so desperate for meat that Katniss and Gale are a very big source of that fresh meat. Katniss and Gale are a major source of fresh meat in District 12 and are a big factor in keeping the same people alive. Greasy Say had intervened and sent us with our deer to the butcher, but not before it had been badly damaged. Hunks of meat taken, the hide riddled with holes. Although everybody paid up fairly, it had lowered the value of the kill. This time we waited until the dark fell and slipped under a hole in the fence close to the butcher. Even though we were known hunters, it wouldn't have been good to go carrying a 70-kilo deer through the streets of District 12 in daylight like we were rubbing it in the officials' faces. The butcher, a short, chunky woman named Ruba. This is the only time Ruba's mentioned in the. Oh my god! I just spotted my cat sitting in a bed of weeds. She looks like in a bed of weeds in the garden. She looks very cute. You don't haggle with Ruba. Gives you one price, which you can take or leave, but it's a fair price. We took her offer on the deer and she threw in a couple of venison steaks we could pick up after the butchering. Even with the money divided in two, neither Gail nor I had held so much at one time in our lives. We decided to keep it a secret and surprise our families with the meat and money at the end of the day. This is where I really got the money for the goat. But I tell Peter I sold an old silver locket of my mother's. That can't hurt anyone. Then I pick up the story in the late afternoon of Prim's birthday. Gail and I went to the market on the square so I could buy dress materials. As I was running my fingers over a length of thick blue cotton cloth, something caught my eye. There's an old man who keeps a small herd of goats on the other side of the seam. I don't know his real name. Everyone just calls him the Goat Man. There are suspicions that he is one of the Covey. We don't know who he is. It could either be Tam Amber or Clerk Carmine because they are the remaining surviving members of the Covey. There is a man who is a fiddler who survives the District 12 bombings. He plays his fiddle at, what is it, Phoenix and Annie's wedding. That is suspected to be, I believe, Clerk Carmine. So this would leave this person as potentially Tam Amber. And the reason that it's suspected to be a Covey member is because they are looking after goats or like breeding goats or something. There's something to do with goats in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'd have to double check. I think they're trying to. They do milk a goat. They have a goat of their own, and people suspect that that like goat expanded into like a herd of goats, and that's how they made a lot of their money. But I think in Sunrise on the Reaping, we're told that Tam Amber is some sort of, I don't know what it would be, but he creates like jewelry pieces, and that's how Hamish receives, like Lenore Dove, on Hamish's birthday on the day of the reaping. Hamish receives a flint striker. Lenore Dove calls it Pretty with a Purpose, and that was made by Tam Amber, and that's his job. But I wonder, once he was not able to do that anymore, he like just decided to start bringing up goats. Like he retired from his job and then he still needed to make an income because he's like, what was I saying? Because it's District 12, they still need to make some sort of income other because they're so poor. Potentially Covey member, either Clerk Carmine or Tam Amber. Correct. His joints are swollen and twisted in painful angles, and he's got a hacking cough that proves he spent years in the mines. Potentially not then. But he's lucky. Somewhere along the way, he saved enough for those goats and now has something to do in his old age besides slowly starve to death. There's also a potential he's not, and then maybe he's related to some other part of the districts. I'm just highlighting this because it's a part of his characterization, this guy. As far as we know, this man does not survive the District 12 bombings. He's filthy and impatient, but the goats are clean and their milk is rich if you can afford it. One of the goats, a white one with black patches, was lying down in a cart. It's easy to see why. Something, probably a dog, had mauled her shoulder and infection had set in. It was bad. The goatman had to hold her up to milk her, but I thought I knew someone who could fix it. Gallet whispered, I want that goat for Prem. Owning a nanny goat can change your life in District 12. The animals can live off almost anything. The meadow's a perfect feeding place, and they can give 4 liters of milk a day. Whoa, 4 liters. You'd be able to sell that like for So, like, if you're in poverty, that, like, it would change your life. To drink, to make into cheese, to sell. It's not even against the law. Which means Prim has something that is legal to do in District 12 for money instead of going down into the mines. And it means Prim is safer in adulthood had she actually lived into adulthood. We know that she did not. So okay, what I've just written here is Katniss set Prim up to make money in a legal and safe way had she lived to see adulthood, which she didn't, unfortunately. Um, she's hurt pretty bad, said Gale. We'd better take a closer look. I went over and brought a cup of milk to share, then stood over the goat, as if idly curious. Let her be, said the man. Just looking, said Gale. Well, look fast. She goes to the butcher soon. Hardly anyone will buy her milk, and then they only pay half price, says the man. What's the butcher giving for her? I asked. The man shrugged. Hang around and see. I turned and saw Ruba coming across the square towards us. Lucky thing you showed up, said the goat man when she arrived. Girl's got her eye on your goat. Not if she's spoken for, I said carelessly. Ruba looked me up and down, then frowned at the goat. She's not. Look at that shoulder. Bet you half the carcass will be too rotten for even sausage. What, says the goatman? We had a deal. We had a deal on an animal with a few teeth marks. Not that thing. Sell her to the girl if she's stupid enough to take her, said Ruba. As she marched off, I caught her wink. This is a good example of Katniss. I've written just here. Katniss is more well liked than she realizes because as she marched off, I caught her wink. Like they want Katniss to succeed. Even people she doesn't necessarily interact with that much. I would assume she interacts with the butcher to trade. But Katniss is valuable to District 12, not just because she brings in meat, but because she's a very well liked person. Katniss just doesn't realize any of that. The goat man was mad, but still he wanted that goat off his hands. It took us half an hour to agree on the price. Quite a crowd had gathered by then to hand out opinions. It was an excellent deal if the goat lived. I'd been robbed if she died. People took sides in the argument, but I took the goat. Gale offered to carry her. I think he wanted to see the look on Prim's face as much as I did. This is a good example of Gale seeing Prim just as much as a sister to him as she's a sister to Katniss. In a moment of complete giddiness, I bought a pink ribbon and tied it around her neck. Then we hurried back to my house. I'm just writing Gale definitely sees Prim as a sister. Which is important when later reflecting on Gale accidentally killing Prim that got like Prim getting caught in the bombings that Gale designed with Beatty. You should have seen Prim's reaction when we walked in with that goat. Remember, this is a girl who wept to save that awful cat, Buttercup. She was so excited she started crying and laughing all at once. My mother was less sure, seeing the injury, but the pair of them went to work on it, grinding up herbs and coaxing bruise down the animal's throat. They sound like you, says Peter. I had almost forgotten he was there. Oh no, Peter, they work magic. That thing couldn't have died if it tried, I say, but then I bite my tongue, realizing what it must sound like to Peter, who is dying in my incompetent hands. I love that. Oh, poor Candace. Don't worry, I'm not trying, he joked. Finish the story. Well, that's it. Only I remember that night, Prem insisted on sleeping with Lady on a blanket next to the fire. Just before they drifted off, the goat licked her cheek like it was giving her a goodnight kiss or something. I say, it was already mad about her. Was it still wearing the pink ribbon? He asked. I think so. Why? I'm just saying, I'm just trying to get a picture, he says thoughtfully. I can see why that day made you happy. It's very cute. Well, I knew that goat would be a little gold mine, I say. Yes, of course, I was referring to that, not the lasting joy you gave the sister you love so much that you took her place in a reaping, says Peter dryly. I'm just going to write a note that this is Katniss avoiding her feelings here and Peter's pointing it out. I love that he does point it out as well, that she avoids her feelings. And he's like, okay, I don't think I believe you there. Candace is avoiding her feelings, but Peter notices and points it out. The goat has paid for itself several times over, I say in a superior tone. Well, it wouldn't dare to do anything else after you saved its life, says Peter. I intend to do the same thing. Really? What did you cost me again? I ask. A lot of trouble. Don't worry, you'll get it all back, he says. You're not making sense, I say. I test his forehead. The fever's going nowhere but up. You're a little cooler, though. Oh my God. Still so much of this chapter left. The sound of the trumpets startle me. I'm on my feet and at the mouth of the cave in a flash, not wanting to miss a syllable. My new best friend, Claudius Templesmith. I love that line. It's my new best friend. The sarcasm that from Peter really rubs off on Katniss. And as I expected, he's inviting us to a feast. Well, we're not that hungry, and I actually wave his offer away in indifference when he says, now hold on. Some of you may already be declining my invitation, but this is no ordinary feast. Each of you needs something desperately. I do need something desperately, something to heal Peter's leg. Each of you will find that something in a backpack marked with your district number at the cornucopia at dawn. Think hard about refusing to show up. Some of you, this will be your last chance, says Claudius. Oh, literally, it will be their last chance. Also, this is how the games work, so I'm obviously highlighting it. There's nothing else, just his words hanging in the air. I jump as Peter grips my shoulder from behind. No, he says. You're not risking your life for me. So you're not going here? Who said I was? I say. So you're not going, House? Of course I'm not going. Give me some credit. Do you think I'm running straight into some free-for-all against Cato and Clove and Thresh? Don't be stupid, I say, helping him back to bed. I'll let them fight it out. We'll see who's in the sky tomorrow night and work out a plan from there. You're such a bad liar, Katniss. I don't know how you survived this long. He begins to mimic me. I knew that goat would be a little gold mine. You're a little cooler, though. Of course I'm not going. He shakes his head. Never gamble at cards. You'll lose your last coin, he says. Very smart, man. Very smart. Literally saying that Katniss doesn't have a poker face right here. Yeah. See, I've been saying this the whole time that she doesn't have a poker face. And Peter just says it outright here. Anger flushes my face. All right, I am going, and you can't stop me. I can follow you, at least part way. I may not make it to the cornucopia, but if I'm yelling your name, I bet someone can find me, and then I'll be dead for sure, he says. You won't get 100 meters from here on that leg, I say. Then I'll drag myself, says Peter. You go, and I'm going too. What's that ass? I'm gonna say their first argument. This is not their first argument. They've argued multiple times. Down at the stubborn asses. He's just stubborn enough and maybe wrong enough and strong enough to do it. Like he's just trying to protect the love of his life, okay? Come howling after me in the woods. Even if a tribute doesn't find him, something else might. He can't defend himself. I would probably have to wall him up in the cave just to go myself, and who knows what the exertion will do to him. What am I supposed to do? Sit here and watch you die, I say? He must know that's not an option. But the audience would hate me, and frankly, I would hate myself too if I didn't even try. Very important line that she's not just thinking about the entertainment. Say, Candace is not just thinking about the entertainment factor or her reputation back in District 12, but also of her care for Peter. I won't die, I promise. If you promise not to go, he says. We're at something of a stalemate. I know I can't argue at him out of this one, so I don't try. I pretend reluctantly to go on. Then you have to do what I say. Drink your water, wake me when I tell you, and eat every bite of the soup, no matter how disgusting it is. I snap at him. Agreed. Is it ready? Wait here, I say. The air's cold even though the sun's still up. I'm right about the game makers messing with the temperature. I wonder if the thing someone needs desperately is a good blanket. The soup is still nice and warm in its iron pot, and actually doesn't taste too bad. Peter eats without complaint, even scraping out the pot to show his enthusiasm. He rambles on about how delicious it is, which should be encouraging if you don't know what fever it does to people. It's like listening to Hamish before the alcohol is soaked in to incoherence. I give him another dose of fever medicine before he goes off to his head completely. As I go down to the stream to wash up, all I can think is how he's going to die if I don't go to that feast. I'll keep him going for a day or two, and then the infection will reach his heart or his brain or his lungs, and he'll be gone. And I'll be here all alone, again, waiting for the others. I'm so lost in thought that I almost miss the parachute, even though it floats right by me. Then I spring after it, yanking it from the water, tearing off the silver fabric to retrieve the vial. I'm just gonna highlight this part. Hamish has done it. He's got the medicine. I don't know how, persuaded some gaggle of romantic fools to sell their jewels. And I can save Peter. It's such a tiny vial, though. It must be very strong to cure someone as well ill as Peter. A ripple of doubt runs through me. I uncork the vial and take a deep sniff. My spirit's full of the sickly sweet scent. Just to be sure, I place a drop on the tip of my tongue. There's no question. It's sleep syrup. Okay, I'm just gonna highlight this part. It's describing the sleep syrup. It's a common medicine in District 12. Cheap as medicine goes, but very addictive. Oh, wait. She says it's very addictive. I think we know that, but I didn't realize it was mentioned as addictive before Sunrise on the Reaping, because that's actually what gets Hamish hooked on white liquor originally, because it's so addictive that Astrid, who was Candace's mother, actually gives Hamish sleep syrup for a long time to help soothe him after his family and Lenore Dove have passed. And Hamish is desperate to not feel anything, so he's addicted to sleep syrup, but he cuts everyone off, and he has no longer access to sleep syrup from Astrid. So he goes and finds the closest thing he can find, which is white liquor. So I'm just gonna write a note that Hamish gets addicted to it. I'm just gonna say Sota, which is Sunrise on the Reaping, which makes sense to me. Okay. Almost everyone's had a dose at one time or another. We had some in a bottle at home. We have some in a bottle at home. My mother gives it to hysterical patients to knock them out to stitch up a bad wound or quiet their minds or just help someone in pain get through the night. It only takes a little. If our other side could knock Peter out for a full day. But what good is that? I'm so furious I'm about to throw Hamish's last offering into the stream when it hits me. This is so cute. Clueless. I'm going to write that on the next page. Last offering into the stream when it hits me a full day. That's more than I need. All right, Katniss is clueless. Especially when she's angry. This room Candace is clueless, especially when she's angry. I mash up a handful of berries so the taste won't be as noticeable and add some mint leaves for good measure. And I am just going to highlight that because it's also food. Then I head back up to the cave. I brought you a treat. I found a new patch of berries a little further downstream. Peter opens his mouth for the first bite without hesitation. He swallows, then frowns slightly. They're very sweet. Yes, they're sugar berries. My mother makes jam from them. Have you ever had them before, I say? Haven't you ever had them before, I say, poking the next spoonful in his mouth. No, he says, almost puzzled, but they taste familiar. Sugar berries? Well, you can't get them in the market much. They only grow wild, I say. Another mouthful goes down. Just one more to go. They're sweet as syrup, he says, taking the last spoonful. Syrup. His eyes widen as he realizes the truth. I clamp my hand over his mouth and nose hard, forcing him to swallow instead of spit. He tries to make himself vomit the stuff up, but it's too late. He's already losing consciousness. Even as he fades away, I can see in his eyes that what I've done is unforgivable. I sit back on my heels and look at him with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. A stray berry stains a stray berry stains his chin, and I wipe it away. Who can't lie, Peter? I say, even though he can't hear me. It doesn't matter. The rest of Panam can. I love that. That is such a good quote. That's brilliant. I'm literally just gonna write down it's a powerful quote. I've literally written down a really powerful quote. And then chapter 21. We only have a couple chapters left. There's 27 chapters in total in the Hunger Games novels. There's a little bit more in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, that is the end of the stream. I'm going to be streaming chapters 21 and 22, maybe 23. We'll see on Tuesday. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday for those of you who are interested. But hopefully you enjoyed this stream. If you did, like and subscribe, and stay tuned for next Tuesday's stream. But yeah, I will hopefully, once again, I hope you enjoyed this stream. But I will see you guys in